Everyone. Good evening, you know, and welcome to our webinar, a special webinar on the BSc Creative Computing course. And it's such a pleasure to have, Dr. Alessandro Ludovico with us today. Along with him is, Mr. Ketan Tiwari. The idea today is to be able to help you get familiarized with our very exciting program that we've launched this year at the University of Southampton Delhi. My name is Dr. Vishal Talwar. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the University of Southampton Delhi campus. And I thought today is a good day to be able to talk about this program, which is on the cutting edge of technology and creativity. Right? This is something which in my opinion and in our opinion, is a course, for the future, the kind of roles, the kind of different careers that you're seeing right now. We believe that the creative computing course has a big, big, big role to play in being able to meet career aspirations for the longer term. So, welcome everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to be a part of this webinar for the BSc Creative Computing course. Before we get into that, I thought I'll quickly, talk a little bit about, the Southampton University as a whole. I'll give you a fair idea of what we are. We are University of Southampton, Delhi. And for that, I would like to very quickly take you through a presentation. I hope you can see the presentation now, and I'll spend about 5 odd minutes on this. Okay. And as we all know, the University of Southampton is proud to be the first UGC-approved university to have launched in India. So I'll tell you a little bit about our journey. We got the letter of intent from the Ministry of Education, from the Government of India, sometime in August of 24, and a lot of hectic activity started thereafter. We were proud to launch our first cohort, our first, programs in August of 25. And now, of course, we're preparing ourselves for the next year, 2026-27, where we moved from offering 6 programs to now offering 10 programs across undergraduate as well as postgraduate domains. So very quickly, if I tell you about Southampton, it's wonderful, like I said, and of course, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Mark Smith, he says, you can't be truly global if you don't engage with India. Now, that's something that Southampton University has, lived to, has, aspired to become a truly true global university. And of course, that means to be a part of India and engage with India as well. Now, what's the idea of transnational education? We are an international branch campus of the University of Southampton. We offer the same degree that we offer in the University of Southampton in the UK. The whole idea of a top 100 university, we are a top 100 QS ranked university in the world. We are a Russell Group university that is known for its impact on teaching as well as research on employability as well. And the whole idea is to be able to provide a lot of access to globally orientated curriculum in the Indian context. So we're actually very proud to be here. And as I was mentioning earlier, we are a university with legacy. We are a university in the UK, which is more than 100 years old. And the whole idea is, what does this 100 years old mean? What does it all mean to students? What does it all mean to alumni? What does it all mean to the faculty? It means that we've been able to create impact for the last many, many years. Now, whether that impact is in creativity, whether that impact is in art, whether that impact is in technology, whether that impact is in management, in economics, these are all areas where Southampton has been able to contribute a great deal, to knowledge, has been able to create a great deal, contribute a great deal to learning as a whole. Right. So I just wanted to give you a brief idea of what we are, our rankings, and of course, how have we fared as far as employability is concerned, how we rank and how we fare with respect to UK campuses, to European campuses, and of course, global campuses as well. What does being part of Russell Group mean? Russell Group, we are very proud as the University of Southampton to be a part of the founding membership of Russell Group. Now, Russell Group Universities is a set of 24 universities which have uh, a very important or have created a lot of impact in research, in teaching, um, and of course, in terms of employability, across the world. It's not just the UK, it's actually global, the kind of impact that we've been able to create. And this is the kind of orientation, this is the kind of impact we would like to create in the Indian context as well with our launch of the campus last year. Now, we operate as a full-scale university. It's a university with this whole concept of the triple helix model. The idea is it's not just about learning in the classroom. Of course, learning in the classroom is important, and that's something that differentiates our students from others. It is also about the kind of research and its impact that we have been able to provide, to the rest of the world. Now, whether you look at fiber optics, whether you look at the internet, whether you look at oceanography, whether you look at internet technologies, Southampton University has had a role to play in a lot of the various innovations that you see at this moment of time. And of course, it's not just about research. It is also about translating this research into innovation, translating this research into industry impact as well. And that's something that we've done rather well in also. Once again, very quickly, I mentioned about the various programs that we offer. We currently, for 2026-27, offer programs in accounting and finance at the undergrad level, in economics and business management, in computer science, in software engineering. And of course, the topic of today is creative computing. That's an undergrad program we offer too. At the postgrad level, also, we offer the MSc Finance, the MSc International Management, and MSc Economics. And you'll be happy to know that we recently launched another program in MSc in Data Sciences, right? So this is to give you a very good idea of what we are as a university, what we actually offer. We are a state-of-the-art campus based out of the Delhi NCR region. I would, request people to come along and experience the kind of atmosphere, the kind of learning spaces that we've been able to create over here. But of course, I think what I'm sure everybody's waiting for today is to get a very good understanding of what creative computing can offer to you. We obviously live in a world shaped by technology, but increasingly, it is creativity that defines relevance, innovation, and of course, impact. Now, whether that is about immersive digital experiences, or intelligent systems, or interactive media, or experimental design, the future obviously belongs to those who can think creatively and compute intelligently. And for understanding the BSc Creative Computing more, who else than Dr. Alessandro Ludovico? He's the one who could obviously explain to us a great deal. He's someone who I would like to introduce now. He's someone who's created a lot of impact at the University of Southampton. He's an associate professor at the university and a leading voice at the intersection of creative practice, media, and technology. His work spans new media art, experimental publishing, digital culture, and post-digital practices. Beyond teaching, Dr. Ludovico is a widely published researcher and editor whose work has influenced how we understand creativity in the digital age. What makes his perspective especially valuable is his ability to connect theory with practice and creative thinking with computational systems. He will share today with us about creative computing, how it's taught at Southampton, what students actually work on during the program. I'm sure a lot of you would be interested in knowing what is it that you do during the program, what is it that you can do after graduating from the program, and how the learning that you get at the University of Southampton Delhi will translate into real-world impact and career readiness. So without necessarily wasting more time, I would request Dr. Alessandro to be able to tell us more about creative computing, to tell us more about his journey, to tell us more about the kind of impact you can create by or through this program. Over to you, Alessandro.
Thank you very much, Vishal. It's a pleasure, of course, to be here and share as much information as possible about the bachelor. And let me say that especially this is a quite exciting time for us to work very closely. And we have started since quite a while with the University of Southampton campus in Delhi for the multiple opportunities that is open. But before talking about that, let me introduce what's the concept of the Bachelor of Science in Credit Computing. Let me just underline that it's a Bachelor of Science with Hans. It's not a Bachelor of Art. But it's in at the University of Southampton in the Winchester School of Art where we are. It's within a School of Art. So how is that combined? It's exactly stemming from what you were saying a bit ago. The creativity is combined with solid technical education. And the challenge lies exactly in the combination of these two elements. So the original idea to have this bachelor was developed not just out of the blue, let's say, but after a quite detailed and intense research on other programs of credit computing, what other credit computing bachelor programs were developed and are developed in other universities, not only in UK, but all over the world. And we found out that most of them were mostly based on technical development. And most of them tend to be specialized in one specific branch. Sometimes it's developing videos, sometimes it's developing apps or software. We thought that we could offer something different. And let me humbly say, that was especially because of the quite excellent environment that we have at the Winchester School of Art, which is made by researchers, professors that are making research. As you said, we are in the Russell Group and we stay in the Russell Group that have a very substantial part of research. And so we could do something different. That's what we thought. And that's how we have tried to shape the program. How is that different? Well, very simply, instead of focusing mostly on technical education, we thought that we can think about a different approach, which is to still have a solid technical education on one side, but to focus on the development of nurturing the development of single students' interest within a creative sphere. Again, with solid technical education. What we are trying to do now since 1 year and a half, we started only in 2024, is to develop what we say it's a develop mindset in students, which is key for us. So, developing mindset means that we focus on the understanding of technologies at a deep enough level to be applied in creative sector. And when I say creative sector, it's a quite ample sector. Why we are trying to have this different approach, and why we are nurturing literally students to develop what we call digital experiences. Well, as you mentioned in the beginning, the technology sector is going fast since 40 years, basically. And now it's probably faster than ever, but I mean, in the present, we always tend to say that. So the idea is that instead of running after the latest technology, which of course we have to understand and note and know what is going on. But instead of running after the latest technology, it's very important to understand the whole sector. It's important to understand how to use these technologies in a fruitful way. That's why the development of mindsets is more important than having a huge technical education. We have selected strategic technical parts that we develop in our programs. Interesting enough, there's no there's no deep pre-requirement for the program because we have structured it in a way that we can reach this level uh, from almost zero. But of course, if the student is very motivated to engage with that and accomplish what we want. So to finish the bachelor with the student shaping very personal, structured, effective, and original projects. This is, in a nutshell, our approach. But I'm sure we can have a conversation about more specific aspects about that.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think you kind of set the tone for the rest of the discussion. Firstly about this whole idea about mindset, this whole idea about you're not, and very interesting what you said. You said you don't have a prerequisite or a pre-requirement of a particular course for the BSc Creative Computing course. Can you expand a little bit more on why this is the case? So, which means that, the BSc Creative Computing course will have students from across different interests, across different streams.
Yes. Yes, I mean, of course, there are levels, there are minimum levels. This year they have been slightly changed. And I'm personally asked by recruitment offices if something is acceptable or not. But this is also interesting for me because sometimes there's an unexpected request and we have to evaluate if the students can actually accomplish the task. But most of the time, this is actually possible. Again, there are minimum requirements. That's a more technical discussion that can be done. But the important thing is that we had two cohorts so far. The first one last year, which was the very first, and we had the second this year. And we had students coming from quite different backgrounds. Of course, there were students from an exquisitely technical background, computer science, basically microelectronics or mathematics. But there were students also coming from humanities. Particularly, there is this case this year of a student coming from studies in psychology. But this student was really motivated and wanted to be engaged with the program. And actually, it's one of the best students that we have. And it's interesting because having this diversity, and this is something, let me say it, that has been really nurtured and cultivated within the Winchester School of Art over the years. This diversity is something that is extremely beneficial for the student cohorts because once one understanding, different perspectives, different understandings inform each other, and they can really grow together. This is something we also push, actually. One of the things that we say to the students from day one is that for us, collaboration is better than competition. And we push them to work together because this is something that when it works, and I mean, until now, I have to say it works, it's really benefiting each other. So, and this is especially true when they have different backgrounds, but also different interests. And again, we try to nurture their specific interests through the technologies in a technological trajectory. So we had from the first and second cohort with students interested in economics, for example. And you might wonder what the student in economics would do in a creative computing course. Well, actually, the student in this case is doing a lot. And he's also testing her knowledge against the different and the technologies and the possibilities that this kind of education gives her. Economics as well as quite a few other fields, of course. I mentioned more possibly the two more, let's say, unexpected or extreme ones, but again, there's plenty.
Thank you. I think this is, I'm sure this is music to the ears of a lot of different students across programs. So you spoke about humanities, you spoke about psychology, you spoke about economics, and of course, people with a technology background as well. I'm sure are part of, the cohort that is studying, BSc Creative Computing. One interesting thing you mentioned is about them working together in the program. So, can you tell us a little bit about, what is it that they'll be working on? What kind of projects they might be doing um, in different fields?
Yes, of course. So I have to say that, that when you start the program, it's pretty exciting because you have the chance to see how it works, also through faults and successes, and what they are studying. So there are, in the first year, there are one theoretical course, which I'm personally teaching, which is Introduction to Digital Culture. And then there are three more modules which are oriented, more technically oriented to programming language and use of microelectronics, in particular sensors. They are aimed to develop the first small projects for them. So to understand, but also realize the small projects that are their own, focus on each of them. But they are also working together in order to better understand the technologies. But not only that, also to share their own ideas, their own perspectives on what is taught to them. Needless to say, in this organization, we have a specialized technician, which is who is available all the time for them for anything that if they want to learn extra things, extra technologies, let's say, extra platforms, or something that might be specific to their own interest. And this has happened somehow. Let me say a little bit about this first year, and then I'll go to the second year that is in development. I mean, it's ongoing now. During the first year, what we aim to do is to already have them decide what's their main focus, what's their area of interest, and work on it. Not from day one, but as soon as possible. I mean, they can take their own time, but it's important that then they choose something, they embrace something somehow. Because this is something that will be developed for all the 3 years. And at the end of the third year, they will have a complex, structured project that will be their kind of business card for their first steps in the future. Could have been more studies or more studies, of course, or could have been a job. It's up to them. But it's important the consistency that we want to keep over the 3 years. So in my theoretical course, what we talk about is the understanding. It is the understanding of technologies. We talk about history of technology. We talk about how our relationship with technologies. We talk about how we understand them, how they work conceptually. So it's something that I think it's quite precious to start because then when it comes to understanding the technicalities or the technical aspects, they can really see the logic that is underlying the whole sector and then act accordingly. I just want to mention that in the second year, then there's of course a shift. There are again three more technical oriented, but then more diversified courses. And we had the course this year, which was a key one. Actually, it was the first course in the whole university about called Collaborate, where they collaborated with a parallel course in graphic design together, again, the collaboration as a value, responding to a brief of an architectural company that is refurbishing the center of the city. So the theme was sustainability. And they were working in groups here. Also, there's a challenge because, as you know, with your experience, when you work in groups, then the challenge is also to understand who does what in each group. But I have to say, I'm marking the works right in these days. that it was a very good outcome because when a group works well, the skills of each member can be manifested in the whole thing. And this was a very nice opportunity for them to work with other students with different background as well, and at the same time to develop their own perspective within a group. And I mean, this is also very important for their future because, I mean, chances are that 99% they will work in a group or they have to deal with groups. So this is important also for our education.
Absolutely. This is very interesting, because you have people who trained in economics, people who've trained in psychology, people who have got a science background, everybody coming together to actually do projects, which is on the cusp of creativity and technology. And I would imagine the kind of output that the students in the program can achieve must be staggering, must be quite exciting. Um, so
Yeah,
so I thought,
no, let me
yeah,
add just a couple of
yes,
examples because
please,
you
yes,
asked
please.
about that and I didn't actually provide them. But there is the interesting things is that there are also opportunities within the university. So, just to mention a couple of them, there was a project within the university that was about developing images underwater, taken underwater. And the three of our students were engaged with this program because they wanted to be engaged. And they learned how to make a 3D printing of a specific shell for a camera, and they started to understand how to take pictures underwater. And this was something, and this was fitting into this research project. So they had their own active part, learning also what the research project was about and developing their own skills. I can make another example of one of the students who is she's really interested in augmented clothes. And in this case, we have in our fashion department a lab which is dedicated to augmented clothing, to digitally, electronic, I mean, technologically augmented clothes. And they are working with the hospital in Winchester, developing a specific prototype to analyze some of our body measurements. And she started to work with them to understand what they were doing and to provide also her input to that. So again, these are just a couple of examples. But they can also, they can also just experiment. So another outcome was a real-time visualization of on again on a 3D map of the pollution in London by areas. They were able to get access to database that are collecting the data and then project it on a wall with a 3D map of London in real time. And I mean, these are the projects that we are also showing during our open days with our students who are, of course, proud of the work, talking about them.
Oh, this is exciting. I think the current generation of students, would like to do this kind of hands-on experimental creative work that involves technology. In fact, we are currently developing everything here while creating the lab for creative computing, augmented reality, virtual reality, a lot of gaming based technology as well. These are things that we are currently involved in being able to set up. And it all, at least for me, as Chief Operating Officer, it's very exciting to actually develop from scratch such labs. I wish all this was there for us when we were doing our undergraduate or postgraduate studies. One question that I think I'm sure is there in people's minds, especially those who are looking at alternative courses, about what are some fundamental differences between let's say, a BSc in computer science and a BSc in creative computing?
Yes, of course. This is one of the recurrent questions I have to say, because of course we are close to computer science. But there's, okay, one fundamental difference. Because we have also, just to mention it, we had at least three students that asked to join our course from computer science. They initially enrolled in computer science and then they asked if they could switch. Why? Because computer science is, of course, structured as to give the deepest understanding of technologies. So you really go deep into that, which means that you engage mostly with the abstract and with the abstraction of programming languages and to develop software and into microelectronics in order to understand how they work at the deeper level. Because that is supposed to be your job afterwards. That it's supposed to be your area of interest. So it's very specialized. And it's, of course, beneficial for those who want to be engaged with that. But as we all know, to use technologies proactively, even at a substantial level, even at a technical level, you don't necessarily need to reach this deeper level of understanding. So we made again a strategic selection of what our students should technically learn, which is of course much reduced compared to computer science, because the part that they dedicate to understand the rest of technology, the rest of the level, the deepest level of technologies, we dedicate to understand instead how to apply the technological understanding to the most different purposes in a creative way. So that's the main difference with computer science. Um, yeah, again, at the same time, it's so while computer science has a quite clear path, a quite clear trajectory. I think that the beauty of creative computing course is that it's flexible somehow. So again, we had students that asked explicitly to learn more about video game engines because they wanted to program their own. Or if they ask, we have plenty of labs, as I guess you do and are building there. So it's interesting if one of them could say, I want to learn more about basic photography. And we have, of course, a lab about photography. And they can spend a bit of time with technician there, understanding how they can realize what they have in mind.
Perfect. So I think that makes it rather clear about who should be doing a BSc computer science or even a BEng software engineering program that we have, and of course BSc creative computing. Now, the other um, thing that students may be interested in understanding is what will or what should they be doing after they finish a program like BSc creative computing. What are the different career paths for them?
Sure. Of course, this is an absolutely essential question. So, actually, again, the careers depend on what kind of sector students are interested in. There's an important thing that I want to underline that in the program we have opportunities between the second and the third year. So between the second and the last year, basically. They have two different opportunities. One is Euro study abroad. And let me mention in this case, of course, we are working closely. There's to have a communication among the program in Winchester, Southampton, and the program in Delhi. So we actually have a couple, five students from Delhi that can have a semester or a whole year in Winchester when they reach the end of the second year. And I hope that this can be further developed somehow. Anyway, they can also go to other universities. We have, for example, a couple of students this year who are applying for the National University of Singapore because they have an interesting program for them. Not necessarily in the creative computing. It can be even be something different, but somehow compatible with their interests and their knowledge. So this is one opportunity. The other opportunity is the year in placement. They can find and are supported by us in finding it. 1 year in placement in a company or an institution, of course. All of this should be thought in from the perspective again of developing a specific interest, which means also to developing a work profile somehow, which leads then to possible careers. So I can easily mention a few careers which are in the whole so-called creative industries. It's the most obvious ones, which goes from digital applications companies to web management, to web development of apps, but there are to computer interfaces, web interfaces. These are, let's say, the most classic outcome, the most general ones. There's plenty there. But the challenge is that the students can already have a quite specialized uh, knowledge when they finish, so that they can address a specific sector. And this knowledge can be spent somehow in the job market. If they want to enter the job market, of course. Um, so again, the year of study in a different university is usually beneficial because it's a quite test experience for them. Or even placement, same thing. And they should all serve the needs of the student to develop their own interests and then their own profile at the end. But of course, there's also the other opportunity to continue their own studies. And again, quite a few master programs that can serve this purpose. At the Winchester School of Art, we have the Creative Technology Master, which is a 1 year full-time master, which is our, let's say, master twin program somehow. But once more, there are different opportunities also there. I hope I somehow answered the question, but again, this is just to give uh, some ideas.
No, abs
Uh,
Absolutely. I think thank you very much for that. I just wanted to stress on the fact that the students from the BSc Creative Computing course with us at the University of Southampton, Delhi, will have the option to spend one full term in Southampton, UK, right? Of course, the reason why we do this is to expand horizons, to also, work along with the students, at the Southampton, UK. It's important that we provide the right kind of global experience, and this is all part of that. The internships, the year of placement, what Dr. Alessandro Ludovico was talking about. Um, Industry exposure, a lot of these things are fundamentally very, very important. How do you engage with the industry? How do you solve problems that the industry is trying to solve? How do you solve, problems that are creative in nature? And of course, will require people that we are addressing right now. Prof, we are addressing the digital natives as we speak. We are addressing people who have been born into technology, right? And they intend to do the undergraduate program right now. So, a lot of these students are actually comfortable, in these kinds of settings. And of course, when you kind of integrate and marry technology with creativity, a lot, can be achieved. I think when we were speaking earlier, a few days back, you did talk about, career alternatives, such as game developers. You talked about UX and UI, designing experts. Even this whole idea of digital public art, right? These are all avenues for BSc Creative Computing students to get into, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I said, I mean, there are quite a few, and thanks for reminding me them. There are quite a few. We have, I mean, just to give some examples, like almost 10 of them, among them, the one that you just mentioned. Yes, the interesting thing is that, I mean, for us in Winchester and Southampton, we all have art background, artistic background, but also we have backgrounds in art with projects that have always engaged with social aspects. And we also have worked with both institutions and companies. And this is extremely beneficial for us. But let me stress one, if I can, one other aspect that I think it's quite specific for the program. It's quite specific, let's say, for us there, but I think it's a value that can be just propagated elsewhere. And specifically, I'm looking forward to um, discuss it also for the BSc in Delhi, of course. I personally have more than 30 years of experience in publishing this journal about new media art. And what I've learned for the very specific conditions I've been able to publish it is the nurturing of your personal network of contacts, which is part of the triple helix that you were mentioning before, the whole university. The key is mostly about that, understanding the knowledge exchange. And this is something also that we push with the students to develop a small, manageable, but strategically done personal network of contacts and people. Not a big one like social media are pushing us today to do, but a much more reduced one that should be strategic. And that's also why we push the collaboration among them. Because these are not only pedagogical values, I think, they are absolutely, but they are also strategic for their future. What I tell them is that if you ask your parents, ask your I mean all your older brothers and sisters, your friends who have some experience. Most of the time, some of the people in their classroom, their classmates, became their own reference in some other sector. And that is quite likely to be the same for their own class. And it could be the same for the references that they progressively get in touch with, the institutions they can work with, the companies they can work with. So knowledge on one side, but again, mindset on the other. These are the key points. Values, of course, with values underlining all of that, because otherwise it becomes just a selfish thing, and that doesn't go that far in our humble opinion. So the network is something important. That's also why it's important that there is a direct and always open channel between Delhi and Winchester, Southampton. And let me mention just one more thing. Again, it's of course promoting our programs, but I think that it's an important thing to say that the University of Southampton is investing in a very explicit way in these programs, among them the creative computing. In Winchester, we are moving to a whole new building that the university has bought and is refurbishing, and it will be ready before the new term, which will be the digital hub for the whole Winchester School of Art. So it's not only a new program, but it's substantially backed up by the whole university. Because, I mean, why? Because I think that, as you said in the very beginning, it's a strategic sector to invest with for both the university and, of course, the students.
Absolutely. I think it is a strategic sector. It'll define the future. If you look at how work, which direction work is moving to, I think creativity embedded in technology will play a major, major role. So I think you talked about values, you talked about mindset, you talked about problem solving, and I think this is exactly what is expected from a new age program. Now, you did very briefly mention that, once the students, so some students would like to get into corporate careers, and this is something that the Career Advancement Services system at University of Southampton, Delhi, is very is good at. The whole idea is to be able to give that exposure to the students. Right from day one, we've ensured that we have the right system in place to be able to provide the industry engagement, to be able to provide the internships, the placements, and of course, this sector is a very important sector to work with, to network with. Um, the other thing is that there are students out there, who might decide to, launch their own startups. Now, that is something that the, University of Southampton Enterprise system also very, very actively supports, right?
Yes,
Now, these
absolutely.
are things that are obviously key for our own understanding. At the same time, there would be a certain base of students who would want to do the undergrad program in creative computing and then move across to, master's level programs. So you did speak about, master's. Are there further kind of courses that they could get into, which could be more creative, which could be, maybe more technology orientated?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's plenty. And also, let me mention, since you very rightly mentioned the startup process, since, as you said, let me reinforce it, very much supported by the university in general, in many respects. Other courses, yes. And again, there is, let's say, some of the easy one to mention, which might be, masters in digital communication, for example. They can be masters in audiovisual development. Um, all the masters are connected with development or more specific creative sectors that, of course, will involve technology, are definitely suitable for our students. Um, but once more, I mean, I think that the student that has to start could even be slightly confused or a bit overwhelmed by all these possibilities. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, this is the experience when I personally talk with students during open days in UK. There's so many opportunities that they have now that one might feel a bit overwhelmed and think, okay, but which one is the best for me? What should I embrace? And of course, my parents want that I embrace something that might be effective in the future, give me a stable future. And this is once more the challenge that we want to embrace exactly because there are plenty of opportunities. It's important that together with the student, within a dialogue, we understand what the student is really interested in and what are the possibilities connected to that. And this is not stopping after the first year because they then have a vision of their next few years. But it doesn't stop even in the third year. Even then, there is still support to say, look, since you are interested in this, there is this going on. You
Mhm.
might want to check it. There is this new trend in the industry. There
Mhm.
is this new initiative of the university itself, or there is this lecture in the whatever department, in the physics department or in the literature department, there's a person, a guest talking about this. It might interest your own trajectory. And this opportunity are again meant to consolidate their trajectories.
Absolutely,
So again,
absolutely.
there are quite obvious ones, but then they can also approach um, uh, relatively unexpected ones. And the
Absolutely.
choice to, for example, to engage in a startup rather than for the studies should also be their own. There might be some who have an idea and they really want to engage with that. There might be some who don't want to take this whole responsibility. I mean, it depends on them. This is something that has to be the result of a dialogue and
Absolutely.
mutual understanding with the students.
I agree. Absolutely. I think, you know, the takeaway for me has been inspiration can come from any quarter, right? Whether that be sitting in a history class, whether that be sitting in, a literature session, or even, out playing football, right? So I think,
Yeah.
as long as we are receptive and we are open to ideas, that becomes a way to be able to reach your goals. So thank you so much for that. I think I'm very mindful of the time. We have about 5 to 6 minutes for ourselves. This has obviously been a very, very engaging conversation for me. Ketan, so you're back. I think, would you like to comment a little bit on the eligibility, the admissions process?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. It was a very engaging discourse by Dr. Alessandro, and the kind of questions that Dr. Vishal presented. I think it deciphered a lot many things that people were wanting to know about creative computing program. I have my own question, but firstly, I'll speak about the eligibility. So of course, you have to be grade 12 pass, right? You have to, if you are from a CBSE board, you need a minimum of 75%. That is what we are looking at. It may not be from a particular stream, as Dr. Alessandro also said. We are open to, having students from humanities, computing subjects also, and apart from that, different subjects into the class. The English criteria obviously is IELTS 6.5, but let's say, and we expect that most of the students come from English-speaking schools, or let's say the grades are all in English. You must have all done your 10th and 12th, you have your scores in English, a minimum of 75%, then you should be good enough. You don't require IELTS 6.5. You will be considered, taught, and assessed in English. We have people from IB board also applying for this, and state boards, you again need a minimum of 75%. So we are accepting people from all the boards. 75% is the minimum. We would love if you have a kind of a portfolio and you can present that portfolio. It will help us to access or assess your profile even better, right? All these things are good. And then eventually when you submit your application, which is online, uh, statement of purpose is a part of it. We will need one letter of recommendation. You will have to upload your 10th and 11th and predicted, and finally the board grades that you get eventually. All those things will be looked at. It's going to be a holistic application that we are going to be looking at. You can be called for an interview. The faculties would like to understand the kind of profile you have, the kind of understanding you have over the subject, and different things. So in detail, or the adumberation that we have for the eligibility is this. It's going to be a 3-year program, of course. You must have heard of different things that you're going to do in class. So for the benefit of everybody, I mean, I'm just asking a question from the side of a student, and we keep on hearing these questions. Let's say, Dr. Alessandro, if I'm not from a technical background, if I'm from, let's say, hardcore humanities, business, I've done some business programs, and I do not know anything about the technical nuances of the program. First of all, am I eligible? Secondly, will I be able to cope with the technical nuances of the program? What are your thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Of course, that's a recurring question. Will you be able to engage with the program? The short answer is yes, as long as you really want to be engaged with the program. Because I mean, as I said, it's a solid technical education. So it's not just superficial, but at the same time, it's not as deep as computer science. So if you don't, let me say the short answer is also that if you don't have a direct experience in that kind of knowledge, you would probably not be able to do a computer science program, but you would be able to do a creative computing program, again, as long as you want to learn about technologies. So
Yeah.
again, the technological part is key. So if you really want to learn computer programming and microelectronics. We already have students who were in these conditions and they are progressing very well.
Sure. I think that is quite reassuring for people who are not coming from a hardcore technical background. So, from your discourse, and I filled 5 pages of my notes from the kind of discourse that you gave me. Obviously, creativity is the key, and then we learn how to use creativity with the help of technology in different fields. That's what it is. One last question, a very layman question again. Uh, can you name some softwares or languages that they are going to be learning in this program, just for their understanding?
Yes, especially in the beginning, they are engaged mostly with JavaScript on one side as basic and Python on the other. But there are also, I mean, we had the first year students who also wanted to explore other languages that are based on JavaScript, for example, like processing, which is a programming language especially dedicated to produce creative applications, or to engage with, let's say, a bit more hardcore programming, which is C++. But the start is between these two different programming languages. And again, there's microelectronics. To our students were able to engage from after I think the second week with Arduino board. Each of them had one, which made it simpler for them to have it connected with their computer and start to see how it worked and start to use programming language also to see how it worked and how they could start to create small things which were progressing, of course, over the weeks.
Thanks. Thank you. Dr. Vishal, I think it's over to you.
Thank you. I think this has been a very engaged, very engrossing conversation. I think there's one question I just want to leave, behind, for everyone to mull and, reflect over, is that, are you someone who wants to use technology, or are you someone who wants to shape how technology is experienced by every one of us? Whether it's a game development, whether it is app development, whether it is, UX, UI design, whether it is anything else, including digital public art, right? I once visited Dubai, and if you look at the Museum of the Future, the way, the shape and, the way it's been created, I would imagine, someone with a creative computing background has had a lot to do in being able to conceptualize something like that. So, thank you very much, Dr. Alessandro Ludovico. Thank you, Ketan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Mindful of the time, I would like to, end here, but I'm sure this is one of, our first conversations with you on this, and I would imagine students, parents, and everybody else will have further thoughts in their mind, further queries. Please feel free to reach out to any one of us to answer those queries. So, thank you so much, and a pleasure talking to every one of you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.